Hello and welcome to Trend Watch 777. Today we're going to be covering a black attorney was brutalized by courthouse police after finishing a trial, allegedly. So what happened after the trial was over and she finished it, she went to another part of the courthouse where she was going over some documents, and the courthouse police asked her what was she doing there. And so, to make a long story short, they figured that she was trespassing. And so what transpired after the verbal confrontation was that the courthouse police slammed her head on the desk and they roughed her up pretty good, and then they moved her to a basement cell. So we're going to switch over here, and shout out to Indisputable with Dr. Richie, and we're going to get right into the video.
Brutalized by a court cop. Put up her picture full mask. You see this? She's a defense attorney. Beaten, according to the allegation, by a courthouse police officer. Defense lawyer Sudeen Riley says she was left bloody. She was left swollen after multiple police officers in Durham Regional slammed her head on a desk without provocation.
And then they also put the knee in her back, and while she was tussling with them, they ripped off her headscarf, and then she also stated that her dress was up, while she was on the floor or during the process of everything going on, her dress was risen up.
Ripped off her scarf without provocation and dragged her to the basement cells of the Oshawa courthouse last month. Okay? This is in Durham. According to a statement issued by Riley's lawyer, Neha Chu, defense attorney Sudeen Riley finished a trial late January 23rd and was catching up on legal work in an interview room when uniformed officers, quote, challenged her presence, end quote, in that room. In her statement, the attorney said police who were working as security slammed Riley's head on the desk and put her knees on her back and neck and spoke to her with rage, disrespect, and contempt.
Now those are interesting wordings there. Challenge her presence, like she didn't have the right to be there. So in their eyes, she was trespassing. And I guess when she spoke up, they like, oh no, you don't speak to us that way, because they spoke to her with rage and disrespect and contempt. That almost sounds like they hated her. Those are hate words there.
End quote.
And so it's interesting how this is worded.
She said officers then forcibly dragged Riley from the room in handcuffs and took her to the basement cells of the courthouse. Quote, her headscarf was ripped off. Her skirt was raised when she was handcuffed by officers, and her head was bleeding and her eyes swollen from being slammed into the desk.
Oh, wow.
The attorney's statement reads, she committed no offense other than being a black woman practicing law, being diligent about her commitment to the pursuit of justice. End quote. The attorney's statement does not indicate how many officers were involved in this incident.
Well, she did say multiple. It sounds like they just had it out for her. Did they know her? Is this their first time seeing her? Because they're courthouse police, and when you're courthouse police, you basically have a knowledge of who's coming and who's going. So was this the first time them seeing her? and in the building or in that room, and it just seemed like it just went from 0 to 100 real quick. It just sounded like so much, so much hate is like anger, like excess energy was involved. Being that she was forcibly dragged in handcuffs down to a basement cell. Wow. And then they ripped her head scar. It just sounded like wow. That's a trying event there. That's a violent event.
The Durham Regional Police Services, DRPS, has confirmed to CBC News that it has opened an investigation into the incident that took place shortly after 5 p.m. at the courthouse January 23rd. In its statement to CBC News, DRPS Sergeant Janelyn Dowdle said the service is working with court services to obtain and review all evidence of the incident. CBC News posed the question if DRPS would be passing the investigation to another police service, given the allegations were made against his own cop. Okay? Quote, the allegations arising from this matter are being taken with the utmost seriousness. Read the email. According to the Durham Regional Police Service, officers arrested and charged Riley for trespassing, even though she's an attorney, a licensed attorney with access to the court. In response to allegations, police said they had notified the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency and the Special Investigations Unit. However, Special Investigations has decided not to pursue an investigation into the matter. There's another statement by the department. I'm going to read it. Quote, for both the integrity of the investigation and to relieve any concerns, the officers involved have been reassigned to duties that do not include courthouse security. The statement reads, the BC Civil Liberties Association also raised broader concern about systemic anti-Black racism in policing in Ontario, accusing the police of denying systemic racism and delaying reform by resisting race-based data collection and relying heavily on police-led investigations. In its 2024 final report, the Ontario Human Rights Commission confirmed the existence of discriminatory policing practices in Toronto, citing the overrepresentation of the Black community in street checks and incidents involving the use of force. 2024, they were able to do the study, come to that conclusion. We talked about this yesterday on Indisputable, where we had the actual evidence of discriminatory practices, and we happened to have the testimony of the mayor who ordered it and the police chief who carried it out. Now, typically, you don't have the smoke and the gun. Okay? In that particular situation, you had the smoke, which was your analytical evidence, and you had the gun, meaning the directive from the mayor and the chief. In this case, once again, you have the smoke. You have the expressed racism by way of administrative officials. Statistically, you have it. It's in front of you. What you don't have is a directive, but you don't need a directive to reverse engineer the data. The data is there. This woman was brutally assaulted and arrested, and all they had to do was validate identification if they assumed she was trespassing. And number three, who the hell trespasses inside of a courthouse? Okay. Dear brother, thoughts here?
Right, and she's sitting at the desk going over her court record. So I'm pretty sure when you first walk into the room, you can see that she was, studying, busy and wasn't just loitering about the place. She was about business. So I wonder if this the first time that those courthouse police saw her and never seen her before. Maybe this was the first time. But even so, I mean, the way they act, it just seemed excessive.
A great point. Sometimes I think these issues, if you just think about them logically for 2 seconds, you can come to pretty solid conclusions. But I like that what stuck out for me here is the CBC News asking a really simple question, which is, why don't you have someone else investigate this since it's literally y'all that are being accused? And I wish that would happen more often, because this is
Yeah, that
obviously a
makes
story that
sense.
is emblematic of something that happens all the time. And if more people were to go, hey, why don't you step aside? Why don't you let a third party come in? Why don't you let someone who doesn't have that kind of bias,
Because they want to police and protect their own. That's why.
it could be a little bit more objective? And I love that classically their response was essentially, no, we're actually just taking it really seriously. You're going to have to take our word for it. And we're obviously the trustworthy ones, even though we're the ones also being accused.
Yeah, insane. We will keep you updated on that story. Obviously, the victim is traumatized in more ways than one. Very thankful for her continued pursuit of justice. An
Yeah,
attorney
so
gets
shout out to again indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, and I will definitely put the link in the description in case you would like to watch the video without me interrupting it. I will put that in the description for you. Okay, so y'all put in the comments, what do you think? Do you think that this is a case of racism, and perhaps the courthouse police, they had to see her before? I mean, it doesn't say that they were new on the job, so I'm assuming that they were regular in the building, and they definitely know who's coming and who's going. And then why do you think that they use so much force like they did? And what was the purpose of them ripping off her headscarf? Now, come on, I can see maybe if it just came off, during the struggle. But she said they ripped it off her head, and then also they slammed her head on the desk. Why so